The Home Depot theme song. It's not even close. Hello, hello, happy Monday, December. Actually, now it does kind of sound like that now that you mention it. December 8th. I am Jason. You all know who I am with Torque.dev. I am so humbled and excited to be here with my three amazing guests. We're going to be talking about MCP today, but I want to just introduce everyone before we get into that. If you guys have any questions for anybody on stage today, drop them into the chat here. It's great to see Ramsey and Roxy and Jeff there. But without further ado, I want to just introduce our amazing panel of esteemed experts in MCP. Can we say that? I think we can. Angie Jones, we have here the VP of Engineering and AI Tools and Enablement over at Block. We've got the awesome Kent C. Dodds, software engineering educator. What doesn't Ken do? Backflipping on snowboards. Ken C. Dodds Tech. And then my wonderful friend and text buddy, Amanda Martin, Senior Developer Advocate over at Apollo GraphQL. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the stage. It's great to have you here. We're going to be talking about MCP and the future of it going into 2026. We're at the end of the year, as we kind of talked about prior to starting today. There's only 23 days left in 2025. It's like kind of terrifying when you put it into numbers like that, but here we are. We've seen quite the rise in content and tooling around MCP this year. I want to kind of just go over some of the things that we've seen and then how developers can approach MCP going into 2026. I feel like it's going to be a really big year. With all of that being said, I just said a lot. I'm going to take a breath here. Starting with Amanda. Can you, and then we'll kind of go around, can you each give us your favorite or simple analogy that helps maybe developers grasp exactly what MCP is fundamentally?
Just diving in right on me.
Gotcha.
So I know you had put you have mentioned the USB-C of AI, I think, in some of the posts about this, which is the one you hear the most. So I was trying to think of like a different one. You could compare it like loosely to NPM in that like packageable, shareable tools. That analogy starts to break down a little. Like if you consider it more deeply, it's not packages, it's not a registry, but I feel like that's another kind of easy thing to wrap your mind around. Like it's not loose code, it's packaged and shareable. And that makes it really powerful.
I love that. Angie, go ahead.
What is MCP to me?
Yeah, just something to kind of explain it. I don't want to say necessarily in layman's terms, but just sort of another way for anybody that maybe isn't quite familiar what it is.
Yeah.
What it is.
I'm going to use one woman on my team. Her name is Ebony Lewis, and I thought she did a brilliant analogy for it at a conference talk once time. But she said it's like a universal remote control. So like I like the thought of that, and it being able to essentially connect to any sort of like data or application, no matter what agent or client you're using. MCP allows for that, right? And so I think that's like a really big superpower of it, is that I can use like the same applications in any agent without doing any sort of like real integration work there. It just kind of just works, right? Because they all speak the same protocol.
I love that. And shout out to Ebony. She's awesome. Yeah. She did a talk, I think, at Render that she was mentioning that as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the one.
Yeah. Over to you, Kent.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think MCP is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you can kind of see that in the way that people talk about it or argue about it online. People can be like, no, of course you wouldn't use it. Like this doesn't make sense to have this feature. Like, why do you care about code mode or like, all of these different things that we're talking about, because we all have different use cases for MCP. But as far as I'm concerned, at a fundamental level, MCP is just a mechanism for getting an agent to talk to an external service in a generic or a standardized way, so that like those agents can actually invest time in building to that standard, and then they can talk to any anybody else who builds to that standard. And so I actually think about it a lot like the way the web works, and HTTP and HTML and CSS. We've got these standards, and anybody who writes to the standard on on both sides, the person who's consuming those things, the browser builders, and the people who are building those things. So which is most of us, the website builders. And so anyway, I would see MCP kind of being very analogous to a sort of browser website kind of idea.
Yeah, well, that totally makes sense. I love it. If anybody else, again, in the comments here in the audience has any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. It's great to see. Oh, I see Taylor Dessen lurking in the chat here, and Brittany over at GitHub. It's great to see you. Next question. We'll start off with Kent. From a developer experience perspective, what's the single most exciting thing you've seen or concept that maybe you've thought about that is now possible thanks to MCP?
So many things. Like I try to stay as grounded as possible, and like you know, there's a lot of hype around MCP, and I think that there's good reason for that. But maybe too much hype in some areas, or for some people, and not enough for others. I think that MCP is can be very foundationally changing. And the thing I always like to talk about is Jarvis from Iron Man, where Iron Man just like says, Jarvis, do this, whatever thing. And Jarvis can just do that. And MCP is what is like, if we were to take the technology that we have in the world and like what can get us to that level, MCP, it will be central to that. There are many other things that need to be done before we can have an actual Jarvis. Maybe an Infinity Stone or two would help, but I think actually getting closer to an AI assistant that can not just answer questions, but actually answer like contextually relevant questions with the latest information and even private personal information, as well as make changes in the world, perform some kind of mutation. MCP is what enables that. And it's not just that MCP enables that, it's that a standard enables that. It's like Angie was saying earlier, the critical piece of MCP is that everybody implements it. And when all of the different agents implement support for it, then you as a developer can write to that standard for your service, connect your cats as a service, so your dogs have something to chase, I guess, and you can connect that to with an MCP server, and then the agent can interface with that directly. And what makes it very exciting for me is not when, okay, yeah, your agent interfaces with this thing. Like, we've been building interfaces for a long time. What's the big deal? The big deal is that the agent can serve as the glue code between your service and somebody else's service, and you two don't need to talk about it at all. That's where it gets really exciting, is that I can spin up 3 different services and not have to worry about integrating those, but they still integrate anyway, because the agent can manage that integration glue stuff. And there's a lot more that I could say about that, but I should probably stop talking.
No, that was great. Anything you want to add to that, Angie? Same question to you.
Remind me of the question again.
Yeah. Is there something that maybe you've been thinking about, a concept, or maybe the thing that you're really excited about that you can now do now that you have access to MCP?
Yeah. The thing about me, Jason, is I actually live in this world. It's not like theoretical to me. Like, my entire company uses MCP. Let me see. I'm going to open my agent now. Let me see how many MCP servers I got. I got 66 MCP servers. And so I live this life, you know what I mean? So I can tell you like real use cases. But like, I just wrote a blog post maybe a week or 2 ago about I guess like how developers are dismissing it. Like, you know, there was this like wave where nobody knew about it. It was like, I felt like I was the only one screaming. Then a couple of other like people caught on really early, Kent being one of them, like, yo, y'all, I think we ought to pay attention to this. And then all of a sudden people started paying attention and like interest is really high. And now we're back to like, what do we need MCP for? We can use the CLI, or, you know, it's like, what are you talking about right now? So I wrote a blog post about that to say, like, y'all are missing the point. If like you just need to integrate your agent with like your GitHub, sure, use your CLI, right? But when we're talking about like integrating multiple different applications together, maybe not even on your local laptop, that's where MCP shines, right? So I'll give you like 2 real world use cases at my company. So one is where we took 3 MCP servers, Linear, Jira, and GitHub. And now in the cloud, or on Linear or Jira. So we use both of these as issue trackers. Some teams prefer this one, some teams prefer that, whatever. So in these issue trackers, you have your sprint work with your product managers and, you know, QA, and everybody's in here, and we have all this work for the sprint. We've now integrated agents into our sprints. And we can assign the agent tickets. So here, Goose, you take these tickets this sprint. And because of MCP, Goose can read the tickets, everything that's going on, do the work, and then put up a PR in GitHub. So you see, you've just unlocked a workflow, right? That you weren't going to get with your little CLI on like your computer or whatever. Now design can like assign Goose a ticket, or product can assign Goose a ticket that actually goes and does development work, right? And our developers are doing it too. This is not, oh, what if this actually, this is how we live, right? The first time we did it, we ran out of tickets that sprint. Halfway through, we had to pull in more tickets because Goose was killing them. All right, Goose did 15 engineering days of work in the first sprint, right? Same thing with Slack. So with MCP, now we're able to bring like Goose into Slack, also connect that to GitHub and our repos. And now we have developers just mid-conversation where you're like, oh, Ken, is this a bug? And Ken goes, I think so. I'm not sure. And Amanda says, hey, Goose, is this a bug? And then Goose is in Slack, starts looking at the code. Yep, here it is. Here's the thing. And say, okay, Goose, give me some possible solution. Goose say, here's 3 solutions with code snippets. Which one y'all like? Ken say, I like number 1. Amanda said, yeah, me too. I said, all right, Goose, go ahead, implement number 1. Now we got a PR, and this all happened in 5 minutes. There's no sprint, no meeting or any of that. So this is what MCP unlocks. Okay.
Wow. I've side note, Goose is fantastic. I've been playing around with it pretty extensively recently. Have it reading my email and calendar from Google, and then weekly spits out like itineraries for me to follow up on and everything. It's like amazing. So I can't speak highly enough for that.
I do want to make it clear, this is also because of MCP. And everything I just said with Goose, you could do that with any of these other MCP clients as well. Again, the beauty of this.
Yeah, that's great. Same question to you, Amanda. Anything that maybe you're seeing, or great use cases that Angie and Ken brought up, but anything for you specifically?
Yeah. How am I supposed to follow up that level of energy?
I know, that was great.
No, that was great. And actually it made me think of, so I it's a little different kind of my focus. So I focus a lot on MCP, but I focus on kind of our customers. So I work with primarily enterprise customers that are working with GraphQL. And just last week, actually, we did a webinar with one of the engineers at Block, actually, and they needed to bring a bunch of endpoints into their graph, gRPC endpoints. And the way that they were able to do this was a combination of a multi-agent workflow in Goose, but not just Goose alone could not figure out how to bring these endpoints into the graph. They also needed the MCP tooling that we work on here at Apollo and we use to be able to translate, like, how do I make a GraphQL schema out of these gRPC endpoints? A really, really interesting talk. The engineer's name was Jonathan. And they also presented it at Summit. It's online if you want to check it out. But it was like a lot of the workflows that I help people with or help educate developers on are about kind of implementing these internal things that make you move faster. So I build little things for myself and my team. and they're not, but the really big impressive things that I get to see are more these kind of enterprise teams just like slashing developer time, and honestly just making developers happier. That was the coolest thing to me that Jonathan said about implementing all of this, is that onboarding developers is easier now to the graph, which is complicated. And developers are happier with this workflow because a lot of the work was migrating these endpoints is tedious work. It's not the fun part of development. So it's just really, really powerful in that way. And MCP was needed because asking an agent how to do that, you would get an answer, but the level of correctness is not high enough. And with a company, like Block, like you're dealing with finances, like, 80% good enough. That's not good enough. It needs to be better. And MCP allows you to get to that really, really close to that kind of workflow that you can truly depend on when it really matters.
I love that. You kind of touched on it here as far as like timing and efficiency and productivity with developers. We'll start with Angie on this one. What's one flaw or pain point in today's systems that you believe MCP is best positioned to kind of help solve? And I think you had already touched on a few points, and Amanda brought up some as far as like developer onboarding and stuff like that too. So what else do you think it can do?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is the fragmentation. So I talked about this a lot already, so I won't harp on it, but like given any MCP server, it should be able to work in any MCP client with any large language model. Like that's super powerful, right? That we have people, everybody's building super fast right now in this space. Like all of this agentic AI is like really new to us, from a mainstream perspective. And so everybody's building and they're in this race. What MCP has done is kind of set some rules, some standards in place. So yeah, be innovative, go as fast as you want, but here are the rules to adhere to. And that allows us as users to like still benefit from that, right? The other thing is, I forgot the question again. The biggest flaw that it fixes.
Yeah. Some of the flaws that it's poised to fix.
Yeah. I'll just stop there so somebody else can talk. But fragmentation I think is the biggest one.
All right, Kent, same question over to you. We'll just keep kind of going around back and forth. I want to make sure everybody gets some input here.
Yeah, I actually don't really have too much to add to Angie. I think that's like, and honestly, this is one of the things that people who harp against MCP are missing, I think, is that like, we've been able to do tool calling for a long time. This is not a new thing. Like in fact, this is how MCP works, is using the tool calling that we've been able to do forever. What makes MCP powerful is the fact that it is a standard. And so, and what's really surprising and wonderful is that all of the right players are playing the game, that they are actually implementing the standard. You look at OpenAI and what they've done with ChatGPT, they've got 800 million, maybe more now. This is months ago that they said this, 800 million weekly active users. That's like, I don't have that many users. That's so many users. Yeah. That's so wild. And they are so far ahead of everybody else, like so far ahead. I think, like, of course, Google, they had kind of their incumbent user base and all that, but like they had, like, I don't know what they were thinking when they decided, you know what, instead of going proprietary, we're just going to do the open standard thing. Like they had so many good reasons that you could say, oh, we're going to go the Apple model. We're going to do a proprietary thing. We're going to have our own app store. But instead they decided, no, we're going to go open. We're going to go with this standard, open standard. And when they jumped on board, then it's like, okay, yeah, this is actually going to happen. Like this is a real thing. And now, and because it is a standard, you can write an MCP server and make your service interactable by any agent that implements that standard. And because all the right players are playing, you don't have to write your Claude version of the thing or your OpenAI version of the thing. Like you just write, or even your Goose version of the thing. Like you just do the thing, and it works with everybody. That I think is the biggest problem that MCP solves. And so people who are critical of MCP and like the actual protocol itself, yeah, sure. Like it's got warts, whatever. I don't care. JavaScript has warts. But the fact is that it's the biggest thing in town, and it enables us to actually like do this and make it work across all of these clients. So I don't like, what is your alternative? It's not as widely used as everything else. So like stop crying about it and jump in and try to help fix these things. Like we are just getting started. We can fix things. And they're actively fixing things.
And that's a good point. I'm sorry, Amanda, but that's a good point, Ken. Like there's a Discord that's open for anybody who wants to contribute. If you hate a specific part of the protocol, shut up and jump in and get to work. Like join the channel, join the working group and fix it, right? And so that's an option as well.
I honestly
love
didn't
that.
even
Go
have
ahead,
a
Amanda.
lot to add to that, because that was what Kent started to bring up was what I
Right.
was thinking. I was like, this is all happening in the open. We're all building a standard together. Anybody can read it, follow along, contribute to it, ask questions as it's going. And that solves the pain point of everybody just building their own little thing in their own little silo and it just being a mess. And then you start to think about scaling, because a lot of people are still at that experimental phase. So what they're building, they don't even know if can scale. So as we start to have standards, then we can do this and figure out what that needs together when you bring all those minds together. And then of course, and I feel like I mostly I mostly talk to block engineers lately, but Alex Hancock, who also works for Square and Block, is a maintainer on the Rust SDK, and we communicate with him a lot because we use the Rust SDK here at Apollo. That's what our MCP server is built on. And he gave a really great talk at one of our MCP builder meetups about the process of how things become part of the specification. So if you're interested, look up his talk and just look up the process and get involved. It's a really cool time to be in tech in general. And if you're passionate about this, you can be part of it.
I love that response, Amanda. And again, shout out to Block and everybody over there.
Oh, Block, leading the way.
Rizal is in the chat here. Also echoing the sentiment. I'm confused why people say it's bad. It solved something and it can be improved. This might be kind of a silly question and it's a little off the list here, but you, Kent, had mentioned like this is the standard and everybody's adopting it. Was there another like product or technology? Like what's the MCP competitor? It's kind of like Blu-ray and HD DVD. Was there something like that? And why did this get so widely adopted?
There was Laurie Voss did a fascinating talk at MCP Dev Summit. If anybody's interested, I think it's a quick 15-minute talk, but he rattled off like dozens of competing standards, and it was a very comical talk. So it's worth your time. But I'll say, like, I was involved in before MCP came out. We actually, like, the Bradley Axon is our IC. He's a machine learning engineer at Block who set out to create an agent just for like him and his developer friends at work, right? And this was like before the models supported function calling, so it's like really hard to do. And then we had the models with function calling, but no standard. And so I can tell you on the ground, it was very hard to integrate with various applications. You were like, okay, I'm just going to pick about 2 or 3. Otherwise, I have to like hand roll the integration for each of these applications. And so he was like, we need a standard. He started writing some things down, reached out to Anthropic and like, some friends over there, like, what do y'all think about this? And Anthropic was like, we're working on something. What y'all think about this? Sent us MCP. We're like, this is it. So we started rebuilding Goose as the reference implementation of the MCP client. And so we worked with them to influence the protocol. And so as soon as I saw the protocol, I knew this is going to be big, right? And it is. And so in my opinion, there are no competitors. Like at this point, MCP has won the race. Like Kent mentioned, all the major players are involved. So like OpenAI was doing their own like proprietary thing. It just didn't catch on. And there was just such a demand from the developer community. The developers drove this. Like the community drove the adoption of MCP to the point where your OpenAI, your Google, your Meta, all of them like had to get on board. GitHub, like everybody just had to. There was no choice, or you were going to be left out of the conversation.
And the developers are driving the development of this thing as well. Like if you look at who, at least I only follow the TypeScript SDK because like what other ones matter? Just kidding. But in my observation, the vast majority of the contributors are, first of all, they're not from Anthropic. Second of all, even at like, I'm thinking of a couple people right now who work at bigger companies that you know the names of, but they do this on the side. They're not doing it as like sponsored by this company. Maybe they're doing it on the job, but they've told me like, this is not my job. This is because I care about this. And so like, it really is as grassroots as a protocol can be, as a standard can be. And I, not that I want to, build my kingdom on top of the blood, sweat, and tears of people, neglecting their families or something after hours. But like, it's a good sign that it's not just a bunch of money that's being dumped into this, but that it's actually solving real problems. And so it's making developers want to continue to improve it.
I love that. We'll pivot a little bit more into the enterprise level. This question's more targeted towards Amanda, but obviously if there's any sort of feedback you guys want to add too. The new spec includes asynchronous tasks. How does this move MCP beyond the simple tool calling into more complex enterprise level workflow automation?
Yeah. So first caveat here is I have not built with this yet, so I don't have a opinion on how it's designed and how nice it is to use, but it solves a really important problem for enterprises and for anybody that wants to run anything for a long time, because that's what it really solves. Is it makes long running processes possible. Because like previously, before MCP tasks existed, everything would be synchronous. You would like start a tool call and you have to wait for it. And if it took a long time, you might have to like ask the agent like, hey, what's the status of that? And if you're like, you don't know what's happening, and then there can be network timeouts, and it's blocking. It's a fully blocking thing that's happening here. And so this is one of those things where people started in their own ways trying to figure out how to orchestrate these ways to have these long running processes. Like say you have a large amount of data to process, or you're doing a lot of image or video processing, and they would make maybe additional tools to check the status. And then you're kind of getting like context window bloat. Like, so people are trying to solve this problem. So by adding tasks, you're introducing like the idea of state and like durability into your MCP process. So you're getting like an identifier and a way to communicate those changes, a way to retry if something happens. So now the client, assuming both the client and the server support tasks, of course, because you have to have that like handshake first. The client can say poll for these results. So you can kick off a task, you can do something else. And that polling interval will come back and let you know when it's done, or let you know, or maybe it's going to do something else and it's going to get back to you later. And it's really, really powerful. And it just unlocks a whole lot more you can do that you don't have to figure out how to write some of your own kind of brittle, messy code solution, because people were already trying to do this anyway. So it really needed to rise to the level of the standard. Is it done really well? I can't speak to that. I don't know if Angie or Kent can. I have not played with it yet.
I can't speak to whether it's done really well, but I have seen a friend of mine who complained about it a lot. So it is experimental still. And this is exactly like, I've been part of standards committees before. This is how it works. Like, so yeah, you put out something out there and you get people complaining. And I mean, like every significant library even goes through this as well. So we'll see what the end result looks like, but Amanda is totally right. This is absolutely a problem in MCP space right now. As you were talking, Amanda, I was thinking about a server that I had that like all the hacks that I had to do to make that sort of experience work well. I just keep coming back to the fact that this is basically like taking the place of a website, and websites have we all hand build this problem. Like, okay, the user clicks this button and the thing that they just clicked is going to take from 10 seconds to 30 days. And like, we need to have some mechanism for, showing them the current status or whatever. And we're going to hand build all of this stuff. MCP needs to handle that use case as well. And so having something built into the protocol makes a lot of sense. So that, and the reason that it makes sense is because, like, you have to remember, if I'm in control of both the client and the server, I can do anything I want. I could do whatever. If I'm Goose and I'm going to build my client that supports this cool feature, and then I'm going to build all my servers that use that feature, it's great. What makes it important to be in the standard is if it's a common enough thing that people are going to want to be able to do it across different agents. And this is absolutely that sort of thing. And so by putting it into the protocol, it allows us server developers to reliably take advantage of that feature and know that regardless of what agent the user is using, as long as it supports the latest version of MCP, it's able to give the user some affordances. Now, those might look different in Goose versus ChatGPT versus Claude, but they'll hopefully have some sort of useful and helpful affordance to show the status of those tasks and things.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. And I like that you brought up, again, being that it's very new and experimental phases and people are still experimenting, and that's usually how the process goes, figuring those things out. We'll start with Angie on this one as well. When building an MCP app, where's the main development friction points today? Tool discovery, the prompt engineering, to get the model to use the tool correctly, or something kind of entirely different? And maybe how
The
does
humans.
MCP...
It's always the humans, Jason.
I believe that. I totally believe that.
So this stuff is new to all of us, right?
Mm.
And so new in building it, new in using it. And of course, like, there's some friction points in building it when you think about things like security and authenticity. What am I trying to say? Authentication. There's always that sort of friction, but then also, like, people using it, like, you're using an interface. It looks dead simple. It's a chat bot and a conversation, right? And you're used to this sort of interface when you're doing text messaging or something like that. But you don't understand, like, everything that's happening in the background that's going to limit your success, like the context window, or like having too many tools and confusing the agents. Like I said, I got 66 MCP servers installed. I dare not have them all enabled, or I'm like blowing my session up before I say hi, right? And so I have six of them turned on and 60 turned off. But like, those friction points, I think, were the main areas where if someone's trying to use this and you don't really understand all of that, you're like, oh, this sucks, it doesn't work, or it's blowing up, or I'm using all my tokens or my money or whatever. And that's because it's new, and a lot of us just don't understand, like, all of the nuances of how to use it effectively.
Yeah,
I've got to jump
go
in
ahead.
there really quick on the on the blowing up the context. This is why. So Anthropic came out with a blog post a couple weeks ago about code generation and using code, like, instead of having tool calling be the mechanism for calling these MCP servers, we have the LLM generate code and use that to call the tools. And this is very similar findings to what Cloudflare launched earlier this year, called Code Mode. And some people looked at that and said, oh, okay, well, so you're basically just admitting that MCP is garbage because it blows up the context window. We shouldn't have done MCP in the first place, just to have it write code. And the people who respond that way don't understand either, like, what the problem was and what this solution is, because it's still using MCP to do this. The value of MCP, again, is the fact that it is a standard. And so you can do things like code mode because all of the tools have this standard definition. So you can generate, like, you can say, here are the types for all the tools available, whatever. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, but Goose actually has the ability to search through the available extensions, even if they're not enabled, and then turn them on if they're relevant. And it's these kinds of client optimizations that you see at the beginning, the early stages of a standard. that like, okay, like we all know this. It's make it work, make it right, make it fast. And right now we're in the middle of this make it right phase. I would not say that this is fast. Maybe it's faster than me doing it manually, but it doesn't feel very fast lots of the time what it's doing. So eventually, hopefully we get to the make it fast phase. But right now we're just like trying to, like, it's working. Wow, this is cool. Okay, let's optimize it. Let's make it better and have a better user experience. I don't want to have to install the server before I use it. I just want to tell the agent to do the thing, and it found a server. Okay, great, it can use it. And we just keep on seeing these things happen. ChatGPT is starting to add this as part of their apps SDK, where it'll just decide, oh, based on what you said, I think this app would be appropriate to use. And it's just going to get closer and closer to Jarvis. Like it's actually pretty cool to watch this.
I agree with all of this, but it made me think of something too. Is that everything that makes it, like I said, I work with a lot of teams that are looking to figure out how to make things packageable and reusable, like fully. And if I install an MCP server, I'm going to call it whatever I'm going to call it. And maybe there's some process that depends on it being a particular name. And because everything's not smart enough to maybe know that it's the same thing. And so I had started testing what agents are going to let me dynamically install and list. These are the models you want to use. These are the tools that you should use. And I want to be able to have a team that governs all of that. And then the other developers are able to use it. And we're going to make a little bit of a Goose love fest here too, because that was Goose 1 in my test, because I could package a recipe with everything in it and the models that I want you to use and the MCP servers, and you, the developer that's going to benefit and use these tools. Maybe you're a different type of developer and you're not developing the tools themselves and these workflows themselves, but you need to benefit from them. Now you don't have to know, oh, well, to use this, I have to install this MCP tool and it has to be named like this and it has to be enabled. Like, you don't have to learn anything. I want you to be able to just use this. So we also have teams that are trying to be part of the platform team for the other engineers, and they need ways to kind of govern these processes. So we need these clients supporting this dynamic tool discovery or dynamic tool, even installation and use, without me having to restart. That was what really upset me about Claude Code, is I could get it to do that, but then Claude doesn't tell me that it needs a restart to find that MCP server I installed, and I don't know it. And because of the way LLMs work, it's still going to try to do the task I asked it to do that it really needs an MCP server for, and it's going to fail, and I'm going to think it sucks. That's no good. So yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of there's a lot of paper cuts right now, but it's evolving. It's new.
It is. I mean, it's still so in its infancy stages here, and it's already come so far. And I think it also shows a testament to people's interest in it, because you see things advance when they realize the potential. We did have a question pop in from everybody's favorite friend up north, Nikki T here. He knows, and maybe Angie would be best suited for this one. I know Goose auto compacts context. Can that be tweaked to when it does it? I think it's just automatic at the moment.
Yeah, it's set automatically to, I don't know what it's set to. I think 20 or 30. I thought that was a bit aggressive for my personal taste. So I have mine set to 75%. And if you just write in the chat where you see that little green, if you haven't run out of your context, it's green. If you're starting to, it's yellow, and once you're in danger, it's red. But if you if you hover over that little dot, you'll see where you are, and a little pencil that lets you change that to whatever percentage you want to compact that.
I just again want to give a shout out to Goose. Great product. I'm not a paid ad at all, but I would be. Wink.
And Goose is open source, folks. That.
Yeah,
that's great. So you make it where you want.
It's awesome. And that actually great timing for that question too, Nick, because that sort of transitions us into this next question. And Kent, if you want to start, the issue of context blow is persistent. How are patterns using MCP, or how are you using these MCP to effectively mitigate token consumption and lower costs in production?
Well, so as far as lowering costs in production, I'm pretty severely, I guess, on the server side of MCP. I don't build an agent. I don't. One of the things that really attracted me to MCP was the fact that I don't have to worry about the token size from a like deploy it to production standpoint, right? Well, that was one of the things that always worried me about building an agent. Like, oh, what if somebody abuses my thing and they start asking, I build this like, ask me anything about Kent's content, and then they start asking totally other things, and now I'm paying the bill for their like finding out if this rash is bad for their, whatever, so that when MCP shows up, it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore, because I'm just adding additional context, and whoever is using the server, they're the ones paying for the token. So of course I do care about it, because it's my users who are going to have to worry about the tokens. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that where I'm coming from is clear on that. So ways to optimize it. At first, I was like, I'm just going to load this thing with so much information. Like one of my most actively developed MCP servers is one that runs alongside the workshop app that you're running locally. So I'm an educator, for those who don't know. And I have this workshop application that people work through all of my material. And along with that, I want people to be able to use their AI agent to improve that learning experience. And so I built an MCP server that takes context from the instructions. You can even do a diff between your work in progress and the solution, and ask the agent, like, how am I doing? What am I missing? Whatever. Or it also has a tool for quizzing you. So it'll give the agent instructions on how to properly quiz you on the material, and like what the answers are and stuff like that. So anyway, at first I was just like, oh, I'll just like load it up with all of the instructions, all of the diffs from all the different apps and everything. And then it'll just have all of this. And I had somebody report that like, hey, I'm on a free plan and I can't even use your MCP server to do anything useful at all, because I just run out of tokens immediately. And so that's when I realized, okay, we got to like trim it down a little bit and reduce things. And mostly I think that as far as like your tool definitions and that sort of thing, as long as you're not being crazy about it, and even the number of tools, I think like this isn't your concern as a server developer. This is a problem for the clients to solve. You should be able to make 1,000 tools if the situation calls for it, and that should be fine. The client should be solving that problem of whittling that down to only the relevant tools, and then providing that to, as context. Now, I can't really think of many situations where 1,000 tools does make sense. For something like what I was talking about, I think I've got maybe 15 tools. And I could probably whittle that down. In fact, I'm in the process of doing that now, where I just say, instead of having all these different things that can help the user navigate around the workshop, we just have a what's next tool, and then the LLM can just ask it, okay, what's next, and then it can tell say, here are the things that you can do now. Okay, do that or whatever. So there's a fair bit of learning and growing that server developers have to do as well. But I think for the most part, as far as like saving on context and stuff, a lot of that is going to be on the client side. One other thing that occurs to me is like, it's really tempting as a server developer to say, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and create that record for you, and then I'm going to send you back the created record and like all of its relations or something like that. Just give you a ton of context, just because I don't know what you want to do with it. So let me just give you a ton of stuff. And I'm finding that is an irresponsible use of their context as well. Because it like, if you're just kind of, I don't know what you want, so I'll give you everything. Most of the time that context is going to be dirty, I guess, like it's just unnecessary, and they can go and retrieve it actively if they need to. So anyway, there's a bunch of thoughts.
Nice. Angie, Amanda, anybody else want to chime in?
I have comments. I was trying not to be, jump in and be rude. But I kind of think about it from Kent's standpoint as well. Like I work more on the server side at this point, and I talk a lot about context management, but GraphQL is also really well positioned for a server developer that's working with GraphQL to do this very easily. So I talk about it in two ways as your responsibility as like the tool developer, is, and Ken alluded to this in the what you're returning is first of all, is your tool meant for an agent to use it or for a human? Like, is that tool output, who is that for? Because the agent probably needs something much different than if the final end goal is to get a human readable output that has everything they need. And so GraphQL is declarative. So you just pick and choose whatever fields you want to return, first of all, which is very easy. And then also is just thinking about all the other ways you can provide information without adding anything else. So whether it's through, a very descriptive name of your tool, and sometimes you end up being a little more verbose, making this kind of much longer, almost silly feeling function name, but it's not really taking up that much more context, but it's actually giving the agent a lot of information, or aliasing what's an ID. I might know what an ID is, but if my agent needs to use that ID, do they need a more descriptive name? Is it a user ID? Is it an account ID? What is this? And so I talk a lot about only returning what's necessary, and using every opportunity in that kind of development process to think about who's the actual user of this, your agent, your human, or both, and like what do they really need to continue their job. So you can tweak a reasonable amount of things on the server side if you kind of think that way.
Yeah, and I think on the client side, we kind of touched on some of the practices. So like auto compacting, when you see the user, like before we didn't have that. Like in the early days, you would be in a really intense conversation or workflow, and then all of a sudden you're just like, you've reached the limits. And your agent is just like, nope, not doing nothing else. And you're like, wait. I'm in this really important thing. You had to like start over or whatever, from scratch. And so those are some of the friction points that we learn from the client side to make a better developer experience, or I guess user experience in general. But like auto compacting, when you see that they are getting pretty far along in the context window, don't let them reach the end and then crash. How about like summarize what they've done, keep the important bits so that they can continue on with the session. Also the tools, right? So kind of disabling most of the MCP servers and only turning on the ones that are needed for the context. So once the user asks you a question, kind of look through what's available, and turn on what's needed, and turn it off when you don't need it. So that kind of helps save them as well.
I love that. And I think we can all attest to the situation where we've run out of credits, and you are just deep in something. We did have another question come through in the chat here. And everybody can chime in, or again, it mentions enterprise scale. So I don't know if Amanda, you might be able to handle this one. For enterprise scale MCP deployments, what observability stack are you using to monitor tool latency, failure rates, and LLM tool selection behavior? Is observability like API telemetry style or LLM centric? You're also muted. I can read lips, but I don't know.
Well, I would say this is an area that actually still needs a lot of work. So because you have like OTel support in, or at least like Apollo MCP server does, but actually kind of looking at observing everything that happens like that in this agent workflow, I think is still an area that needs more tooling right now. I think that's actually more of a hole. So there's not much you can do. Telemetry gives you some support, but as far as I've seen so far, there isn't anything that does a really good end-to-end observability in this world yet. And I would love to be proven wrong because I haven't found it yet.
I think length fuse is pretty good. So that'll allow you to kind of connect it to your agent, and then it's like observing like the entire flow. So like the conversation, like the prompts, the tool calls, the responses, like everything that's happening, and surface that for you.
Yeah, and I think like even just saying like, did it do what it's supposed to do? Like that's a question we want to be able to answer and observe. Like how often was it successful, and in what scenarios? So I don't have a good answer for all of the stack either, but yeah, I'll be looking into Langfuse as well. That's not one I've touched yet.
Yeah, this is an interesting area. So first, I'll say I use Sentry, and they've got great tools or reasonable tools, as good a tools as I've found in this area. And I've heard of a couple of startups that have tried to solve this problem, and some of them are still with us. So we'll just see what that future looks like. But in general, like depending on the situation, I'm normally thinking about from the endpoint of a consumer using stuff, not necessarily IDEs and technical users and stuff. And what Amanda said is very poignant. Like, did it do what it's supposed to? Is a really hard question, because we, for privacy reasons and others, we're not going to see the conversation that the user's having. We just receive the input and we send the output, and like hopefully the LLM makes good use of that. But it is kind of interesting because it also changes the way that things like SEO work, where before, like PageRank from Google is like, oh, this really popular page links to this thing, so that thing like will up that in our search results and stuff like that. But imagine if Google not only knew that, oh, the user clicked on that link and then they came back, so it must not have worked very well. But they also can like see the user swearing back at the agent, like, this is the worst and I hate it so much. And like, so they can like feed that into their ranking of these different MCP servers. Like, wow, they really didn't like that one. So we're going to derank that one and choose a different one next time or something. So it could be that the agents start providing this kind of feedback to the server writers to and maybe not necessarily like in a privacy invasive way, but like some sort of general like temperature on how things are going. Like, hey, you probably need to look at these tools. They're not really serving your users very well. There's a lot, I think, to still be determined, but it'll be exciting to get there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's so much more growth to happen. And I think that's kind of, I mean, we only have a couple minutes left. I didn't even realize we've been going an hour. This has been a really great conversation. Where have you seen, in this question, we'll go to Angie and then go around. Where have you seen the most growth in MCP as far as from a product perspective? And then what do you need to see in 2026 going into the next year? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I would probably say security and auth. Like that was pretty underdeveloped on the initial launch of the protocol. The community was very vocal about that, and I think that the maintainers of the protocol acted pretty swiftly to get things in place. So we're now able to use MCP at the enterprise level. Like I said, like we have 12,000 employees, not just developers, everybody, finance, design, the executive assistants, everybody is using MCP in our company using agents. And so that the security in the auth piece really helped us be able to adopt this internally. And then also, you know, we build AI features for our products, for Square and for Cash App and things like that. And the auth and security, again, there being present has been a huge enabler for us to be able to do that.
I love that. Anybody else want to jump in? Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
just my focus went to the wrong window, I guess. Yeah, I'm very excited about MCP apps. I think that is going to be, I mean, like in the last couple of talks that I've given, I take the ChatGPT apps demo, like their promo video that they made. It's like a minute and a half long. And I just literally watch this and I stand back and I just like, I'm just like, please, will you understand or get into your mind what I have in my mind about what the future of user interaction is going to be like. This is a really great demonstration of what that's going to be, where for such a long time, like the last 3 years, we've been all like busy trying to add chatbots to our app. Well, OpenAI and MCP decided, you know what, let's just add the app to the chatbot, and making it so that I can talk to any application and the response can be text if that's appropriate, or it can be a total graph user interface, something that I can interact with. There's a difference between, hey, could you add eggs to my shopping list? And like, sure, I can get a text response that says, yeah, I did that. Or I can say, hey, can you show me my shopping list? And okay, yeah, that makes sense. I want to see a visual thing. Or like, I've got a bunch of things to check off. Could you show it to me so I remember? Whatever. Like, I don't want text for that. And so being able to have this multimodal input that we've always talked about, that's great. But we also want multimodal output. And that's what MCP apps enables. So I'm very excited about that. I think that's going to be a big thing. Another thing on the security side of things is secure transfer of information. So right now, you really shouldn't be putting your credit card or like social security number or anything like that into something that will send that to an MCP server. Even if you trust that MCP server, if it's going through some kind of proxy or something, sure, it's over HTTPS. But if you've got like an MCP gateway or something, there's no secure transfer of information in the spec. And we need to have something like that. So I think that would be really cool. And I've got like some nitpicky smaller things like, come on, can we get some output schemas on sampling and different things like that would be really, really nice. But yeah, I've just noticed that development on the spec and on SDKs and the inspector and like even third-party inspectors has really picked up in the last couple, like 2 months. It's just been really exciting. So yeah, for those of you who are MCP haters and you're like, man, there's so much hype here. Like we are not slowing down. I'm sorry. Like there's so much happening and I'm very excited about that.
Love that excitement. Go ahead, Amanda, and then we'll go into closing thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add here. I think and Kent alluded to some of the things I was thinking. I think we are already starting to see where things are going next. You know, we've seen many industries start to get upended already, like traditional search and e-commerce, because now that you've got the MCP apps, there can be this vision of what that would look like if companies now they can get their visual branding into this, like that's their salivating. Another place that I think will really end up going away, because this is kind of more what we're all doing already, and we've all kind of mentioned this, that work with developer teams, is all this internal, these crappy internal dashboards, internal tools that you've been forced to use at every job you ever join. I don't need those anymore. I can make useful things, personal stuff for me and my team. I don't need to use this crappy dashboard that probably doesn't do everything I want and makes me have to do a lot of manual reporting and everything like that. I think this ability to make these personal small team tools for literally anybody is going to like change the way we all work as well.
Yeah, to that point, we actually have developed a agentic operating system at Block where we have tiles, and each one of those tiles are little agents that are running. And so it's connected to all of our systems. So I'm not going to say any product names that actually suck, but we're all thinking them. And you know, you don't have to go there anymore. You go to your agent, query whatever information you want, or tell it to like make any entries you want. And now you have like this one beautiful agentic interface for all of the tools.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Thank you again to everybody. We'll do closing thoughts and then we'll wrap up. Angie, we'll let you go first. Thank you again so much for being here, everyone. Closing thoughts, MCP. What do you want everybody in the audience to know going into 2026?
That MCP is for everybody, actually, not just developers. Like we are nerdy and we think about it from you know, the technical details, but MCP should be an implementation detail that your users are not even exposed to, right? But given MCP, I would like for a developer to consider like not what it does for you, but what can you do for your customers? Like what can you open up for them given this technology?
That's awesome. Everybody go check out Goose. Also the advent of AI.dev, sponsored by Goose. That's pretty awesome. I've seen all the posts. Kent, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I love what Angie said. Like I said, my focus is mostly on consumer. I teach the things that I think I would need if I was still working at a consumer-based company like PayPal, where like, okay, in this world, I think PayPal really wants to be there. And guess what? They are there. They were like a really early implementer of MCP, and I think that whatever company you're working at, if you build internal tools, don't worry, like you can jump on the MCP train too. Like, in fact, it's even better. If you're building for enterprise customers, if you're building for even like a small team or anything like that, or of course, consumer. This is a huge thing that engulfs everything. So that's why I pivoted so heavily over to it. I do still, of course, care about JavaScript, React, and all of testing and all of that stuff. But I think that the user interaction model is changing, and I want to be there to teach you all about it. So that's why I'm teaching on epicai.pro. Go take a look.
There you go. There's the link. Everybody go check that out.
And actually, since this is live, I'll mention that like right now, this very moment, we've got for the next 7 days, a 40% discount on a new workshop series on Epic AI Pro. So you definitely go look. Like, don't put this on your to-do list later. Look at it now, and you can save 40% if you decide you want it.
Get over there. Links are in the comments there. Thank you again to Angie and Kent, and then finally closing thoughts, Amanda, and we'll get everybody out of here.
I love this. It's for everybody, and also just like go build. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the word server in MCP. Don't think too hard about it. Just go build. It is for everybody. It is approachable, and just learn. And if you are interested in Chat GPT apps and MCP apps and all that in general, I will be in 2 weeks having a webinar on that with one of the engineers at Apollo and just kind of what we're doing there. So come join us and join our community of MCP building, and you can just talk to other developers and what they're doing. It's the best way to learn, honestly.
Well, thank you to my wonderful guests. We'll get them out of here. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. This will all be available on the torque.dev YouTube channel for future reference. And again, go explore. MCPs for everybody. Go check it out. Thanks again. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye now. Hey,